Welcome back to It Starts With You podcast. I am so very excited for our guest, Lu Ann, today. Lu Ann, thank you for joining.
Oh, I'm so excited to be part of this.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I met Lu Ann at the National Speakers Association. We were both at the NSA Influence event this year, and we just happened to be grabbing breakfast together in line. We sat down at a table, and I was like, I want to talk to Lu Ann more. I think you're all going to absolutely love what she has to say. So let's learn a little bit more about Lu Ann, and then we're going to jump in. So, Lu Ann Cahn is an 8-time Emmy Award winning journalist, author, and an international keynote speaker. Her book, I Dare Me, which I am so excited to talk about for our listeners, published by Penguin Random House, is based on the year that she did one new thing every single day. So 365 days in a row to get her life unstuck. Thousands followed her journey, documented on her blog and YouTube videos. Lessons learned are at the core of her highly engaging and inspirational keynote. Lu Ann also brings her experience as a 2-time cancer survivor to her master of storytelling. She currently resides in the Philadelphia area where she teaches media and communication students at Temple University. We have even just from that, I'm like, I have so many things I want to talk about, and I know that my listeners are just absolutely going to love this. So let's just start first with, can you just share a little bit about your background? Because I think people are always fascinated, like, okay, we love to see where you are now, but where did you come from? So can you just share a little bit about what your background is?
Right. Well, I went right into a career in TV news right out of college. 40 years of my life I loved. 28 years in Philadelphia at the NBC station as a TV news reporter, mostly as an investigative reporter, a career I absolutely loved. I'm also a two-time cancer survivor. As you mentioned, as a young woman, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Then I had kidney cancer, had my colon removed. So I've gone through a lot of medical trauma, let's say. I'm very lucky to be alive and here and talking to you today. That's my background. Where everything turned was when I got really, really stuck, despite all the accomplishments and everything I survived.
Oh my goodness, so much. I'm so good.
So, when I got stuck, and I think we're in a time of dramatic change. And when I got stuck, it was also another time of dramatic change. And it was in 2009 when the economy tanked. I don't know how many of your listeners remember that. I'm sure some of you do. But the world changed, technology changed. You know, people were losing their jobs and their homes and their health care too at the same time. And the job that I loved changed dramatically. And I think, even though that what seems like a long time ago, a lot of those things are happening to people now
Yeah.
too. So I'm sure people relate to this in a way. Your job may be changing. Your, if you're in a leadership position, there's so many questions and unknowns, change coming at you, policy changes, how to manage maybe a diverse or hybrid workforce, right? All those
Yeah.
kinds of changes. But for me, it was, oh, social media, the internet, everything was just starting. And my investigative unit was dismantled. People who I'd worked with for 10 years, who I loved. And I was told I would have to shoot and edit my own video, which was something I never had to do.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was really angry. I was really angry and overwhelmed and upset with the world for messing up my good thing. Right? And I know people feel that, through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Our lives, it happened then, it's happening now, and it feels like change is happening every day we wake up, there's something new. And the book came, and that journey of doing something new came out of that frustration and anger and feeling of not being in control.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm jotting down so many notes because Like we could talk about so many things. So first of all, before I want to talk about that that catalyst moment for sure. Because for many people, right, you kind of are at that point where you can keep being angry. And first of all, even just to validate those feelings of like, of course you felt angry, given that so much stuff was changing. And I think even just like, thank you for giving people permission to even say that out loud. Like, yeah, I'm angry. My job's changing. I mean, I work with a lot of companies, and there's a lot of big changes. There's mergers, there's integrations, there's layoffs. So people are angry, and we always have a choice in that anger, right? To like lean into the anger and stay stuck, or to. So I want to talk about. I really want to talk about that. But before I do that, before we get to that part, I would love to just hear. So you were this investigative reporter. Can you just share a little bit about like what was maybe like
Oh
one or
yeah.
two of the biggest things that you learned from having a career like that?
Oh, I mean, this is I was a risk taker, you know.
Mm,
I loved the adventure of every
mhm,
day going to work and not knowing what was going to happen in that realm, right? Every day I
mhm,
was talking to new people. In my role, I talked to presidents and celebrities and uncovered scandal, covered the Middle East, went to two Olympics. I mean, it was
wow.
this adventurous, amazing job with the team of people that I loved. Um, you know, you might have a sense of this that investigative journalism also, though, takes time. It's not,
Mhm,
they weren't the kind of stories that we turned overnight. Sometimes we worked weeks and months on something, and I loved digging,
mm,
right, and working on something. And sometimes I would have five or six stories going on. So it's also the kind of job where not everybody gets to do it. You know, some people are general assignment reporters and you do all kinds of things and it's something different every day. Um, I felt like it was a privilege to be an investigative journalist.
mhm,
And again, you know, and again, some of your listeners may relate to this. Sometimes you get into that job that just feels like it's so you, it's so perfect for you. And
mhm,
I thought that role was going to last till the end of
mhm,
my career.
mhm,
I just thought I was so comfortable in it and felt so satisfied with the mission and what I was doing and my purpose. And I felt like I knew what I was doing.
mm,
And I think when you're in a role like that, it's even harder to change when change comes at you, or you're forced into it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was hoping that you would talk a little bit about that because you could just see the passion, like when you were first talking about what you did, you can see the passion. And so it's not that, some people who are listening are in that place. Like maybe they do feel like something was taken away from them that they felt was their purpose and like their mission. And some people don't love what they're doing. So if it gets taken away, it's okay. But I could just tell from your energy, like it was something that you were so invested in and something that you felt was part of maybe your identity. And then so when you find out that that's going to be taken away and that's going to change, okay, so then take us to that moment. So you have this anger and this,
Well,
this
yeah.
frustration.
So these people that I worked with, I had a team, of 5, 6 people, and again, we worked together for 10 years, and again, we traveled the world together. Worked on, I would say, in some dangerous situations sometimes, some
Mm-hmm.
undercover situations sometimes. So, I mean, we were close. It was my extended family. And when the economy tanked and stations and businesses across the country started cutting back, investigative units are very expensive to run.
Yeah.
And I was told I had a contract, and so I
Mm-hmm.
was told I would stay on as a reporter, but my investigative team would be dismantled. And again, you know, if you're listening, you might relate to this if your team has been let go or there are layoffs or that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts to have to tell people you've worked with or you're mentored or whatever it is that their job is gone or changed, and you almost have some survivor's guilt too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm here, but everybody else got to go. And then I was told that my role would change and I'd still be a reporter, but I was not doing those kinds of stories that I absolutely loved and have the privilege to do, and the kind of stories that took time. And that's when I started, and I'd always loved my work. That's when I started feeling angry and sad. And here I'd survived cancer twice, right? And I was physically good, but mentally not good. And
Mm-hmm.
that went on for months, probably for a year,
Yeah.
before I started like kicking myself in the rear end a little bit and got myself going.
Yeah, because it's like, so I want to dive into that, and then I want to get into how you turned this into this amazing book and experience. And so, just if you don't mind, just if we can kind of hone in on the cancer piece just for a little bit, because what's really resonating with me, and I don't know if we even talked about this, is I had melanoma last year, and I had multiple like facial surgeries. My husband had testicular cancer a couple years ago, and so even just, and I know that when we've talked about that has so many people, either personally
Mhm.
or people that they know have gone through that, and that in of itself can shake you. And I think sometimes when we feel like we're losing our identity in our health, like if you identify as like being healthy and vibrant, and then you have something that starts to like pull away at that, and then you start to lose your identity professionally, like that can really, for me, I know when I was in those places, I've had a lot of health issues just throughout my life. And it's like when you start to lose those pieces of your identity, sometimes it's just like, it just feels like it's like you're like piece by piece is getting ripped away. And then you're like, who am I? And so what I'm hearing, it's like you were able to overcome and overcome and you have this resilience, but then you get to a point where you're just like, come on. And that anger can start because it's like, what next?
Well, I will tell you, I was I was just 35 years old when I was diagnosed with an aggressive breast cancer. And there was no breast cancer in my family. And I was furious. Not just because I got breast cancer, I'm sure it's always shocking, especially when you're younger, that you have
Mhm,
cancer, any kind of cancer, any kind
mhm,
of chronic illness, or something that could threaten your
mhm,
life. And I was a young mom. My daughter was 3 years old and still, getting my sea legs in my career here in Philadelphia. I was still pretty new here. And as you said, I mean, it just knocked me off my feet that I ended up having 6 months of chemo, a mastectomy, reconstruction. It felt like a long road. But the thing that made me really angry, and I talk about this, and I've always talked about that, I've been very public, was that I felt a lump, and the doctor I trusted told me it was nothing. I had a negative mammogram, and it showed nothing. They couldn't see it. They couldn't see it. Mammography's improved a lot since then, but
mhm,
I walked around with it for 6 months before I was finally diagnosed because I finally got
wow,
myself to a doctor who, at first didn't even believe that anything could be wrong with me because I looked so healthy.
mhm,
And I told my story publicly back then on TV, 1991, before many people were talking about breast cancer
mhm,
openly. And I'm very proud that I did that. And it did come out of anger. I didn't
mhm,
care, because I wasn't even sure I'd survive it.
mhm,
And then I got kidney cancer 10 years later. So, which is why, like, I'm a person who should know life is precious, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we get today, we don't know what's promised tomorrow.
mhm,
And I really tried to live my life like that. And there was when I got to that point, here I was later in my life when I got stuck and I was angry about all the changes. I felt shame related to that too. Like I was ashamed that I wasn't appreciating what I had, my life. And my daughter, who had grown up now, I mean, she had been with me through all that medical trauma. And
mhm,
now she was grown up and she was like, what the heck is going on with you? when
Mm.
what, this isn't you. This isn't your best self. Where did you go? This
Oh,
isn't my
wow.
mom. Yeah.
Wow, oh, that gave me goosebumps, right? Because that sounds like then one of the big moments where it's like, okay, I overcame all of this. Like, you are someone who is a problem solver. You want to get to solutions. I can just, tell you want to be resilient and bounce back. And so if you were, this way and, you weren't feeling connected to yourself and your family can see it. So now, how did you take all of that? Because again, I know a lot of people listening are so relating to this, and that's why I just thank you for sharing that because they either are going through health challenges or they're going through, career changes or whatever it might be, and they might right now be still stuck in the like angry and shame and frustration. So how did you take that and turn this into like, okay, I'm going to do something new every day for 365 days? Like, how did you get from that to that?
Um, so if we're talking, I don't know if you want, like, when I got breast cancer, there was when I decided to tell my story publicly, it felt like I was taking some control back, control of my story. And just go back to that for a second, that I turned I didn't want to be a victim. And I know that's really hard because that's how you feel, like, what is going on? Why, um, for me, telling my story gave me purpose, some somewhere where I could put my anger to, my energy, I guess, and let other women know what I knew. Fast, jumping forward, you know, now here I am, like so I was 35 and I was 50 something when, you know, in 2009, um, again, because I had survived all that, and my daughter knew I had survived all that, and been courageous, I guess, in some ways in speaking out back then. Where had I gone? What had happened to, like, that person? And I think I will say, having somebody who knows you really well kind of call you out a little bit, or maybe it's a coach, or maybe it's a counselor, or maybe it's, to say, okay, you've done all these other things in the past, and you're a risk taker, and you've, where, what is happening right now? And what we got down to was that I was afraid to do, I didn't want to accept new technology because I was afraid that I wouldn't do it well or I would look foolish. It didn't make sense to me. Um, it just represented change that I didn't want to happen. I didn't want to say yes to anything new. I started being very narrow in what I would do. I said no to everything. I didn't laugh. I didn't play. I didn't smile. It was a really kind of sharp turn. And, um, my daughter helped me recognize this was not a good place for me to be. Not in my life, not in my career, and that something had to give. And we came up together with the solution of I had to do, I had
Oh,
to do new things.
that's
That,
amazing. So you guys talked about it together.
yes.
Okay.
She pushed me. She really pushed me. She wanted me to start a blog. And at the time, I didn't even know what a blog was. I was like, what's a blog?
Yeah.
And besides, it's writing, and I was already writing, and it already sounded like more work. And I was working full time. She really challenged me and she said, you need to do this. You need to do something. And she's the one who said, you should do something new every day for a year, which sounded a little insane. I mean, come on. I mean, I get it when people go, what? Like, how could you do that? And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy. But she was my cheerleader. She was the audience of one going, go mom. And I will tell you, if you want to do something like this, it doesn't have to be like exactly, but it helps to have someone cheering you on, someone who'll be your kind of partner in crime. I would say if you're stuck, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel angry, if you feel like you are just overwhelmed by whatever's going on in your life, could be crisis, could be work, could be whatever it is, just the overwhelming amount of change you're being bombarded with every day. I would challenge you to make a list of every simple thing that you've never done. It's a powerful step. It might sound silly, but I dare you. I dare you
Yeah.
to write just make the littlest list of like things you've never done. It could be, I mean, my first one was on my list was eat dessert all day, which is so silly.
That's
And
amazing though.
doesn't it sound good?
Yes.
Because that's what I'm thinking. I just want to eat dessert all day. It's really not a great thing. But
Yeah.
I went a day without coffee. I walked my dog around the block backward. I planted my first herb garden. I bought my first lottery ticket. I I was working full time, right? So anyway, I just made this list and that was the beginning. That was the very start. What little things have I not done? What kind of food have I not tried? What little things? Didn't have to be big at all. Just the simplest things that I could incorporate in my day. And I would encourage you, just try the exercise or sit with a family member or a friend like, what are the little things we've never done? That's a beginning step.
Oh my goodness. So that's what I was so curious about. I mean, it sounds, what I love is the simple, because I think some people, our brains kind of are hardwired to like self-preserve. And I think some people are like, oh, well, she can do that because she's done this. Or some people are like, oh, I think we go to like big things like, oh, I'm going to do this. And it's like, it can be those simple things that gives you the momentum. So how did you come up with the list of things?
You know, the first list was pretty simple. You can come up with a lot of little things like one day I let everybody cut in front of me, you know,
Oh,
driving. Uh, I gave all my coupons or whatever to the people behind me. There are a lot of, I mean, in my book, there's 365 first time experiences I did, and most of them are really little. And I always kept a list with me. But the interesting thing was, as I shared, and I started this blog with my daughter's help, as I shared, people started following and reading the darn blog. And I started recording and learning how to shoot and edit, something I had said no to. I started recording very simple, raw little video that I was doing, these first time experiences, and people started giving me ideas. They started inviting me to things. They started telling me about their hobbies. And I met amazing people through this, but I also realized that some of my friends were going to be supporters in this, right? They're like, yeah, let's do it. Here, come with me and do this thing I do, the woodworking thing, the Irish hula dance, the knitting thing, the whatever it was. Have you ever done this? Have you ever learned to juggle? Have you ever been to an Ethiopian restaurant? Right? They started asking and inviting me. And that was part of the challenge too. I had to say yes. I didn't say yes to everything. Like I was asked if I would pose nude for an art class. And I'm like, no.
you're like, no
Oh,
boundary.
sorry, there are boundaries. Like you don't have to jump out of a plane. You don't have to do things that totally like come on, right? But within that range are more things than you could probably imagine. And sometimes things would just happen during the day that would give me an opportunity to do something for the first time. And that's how it happened.
What do you say? I have two questions. The first one is, what do you say when somebody, because I mean, you have the book now, you speak on this, like if somebody pushes back and is like, well, I don't have time, I'm just surviving every day. I don't have time to try something new every day. I don't have the energy to do it. Like, what do you say to them?
Yeah, that was my first reaction to my daughter. I don't have time for this. And this seems frivolous. Doesn't seem important. I have important things to do. I have a million to do things that I have to do. What's interesting is when I started doing these little things, the things that I could just work into the day, I realized that I was happier. There was a little thing in the day. It might be a 5 minute thing, and everyone has 5 minutes. That gave me a little oomph, that woke my brain up a little. It was a positive something that had an impact on all the other things that I was doing. If I could work in a few minutes of something new that was playful or joyful, or like I said, it doesn't matter what it is. Your brain, and the science promotes this, supports this. Your brain lights up when you do something new, anything new. And when you do something new, you get a hit of dopamine, the feel good chemical dopamine, and you create memorable experiences. So, I like to say this, sometimes there's like a party going on in your brain when you do something new. Again, it doesn't have to be big, it could be big, but I started off mostly small. And it didn't matter what it was. I felt more resilient, happier, courageous, and all of that by doing these new little things. And all of a sudden, all those things I was angry about, resisting, and saying no to, I realized, wait, these are just new experiences and things to try. And I also realized I was afraid of risking imperfection in doing these new things. I know this is something you talk about. That we're afraid of imperfection. And by doing new things, I realized it's okay. We have to risk imperfection to try new things and innovate and be our best selves. And when we stop doing new things, we become more narrow. There is a study from the National Institutes of Health that also say doing new things, people who are more willing to do new things, they experience transformative. It can be transformative in your life. So while you might be going, I don't have time for this, blah, blah, blah. I got a million other things to do. I get it. You can't think of how you could possibly squeeze one more thing into your day. But what if I told you that one new thing might start making everything else going on better, give you a different mindset, help you be more positive? It's almost like taking your vitamins, right? And again, think of the small things. It can be small things. It could be a class you've wanted to take. I have to admit, I started with something really big. I did the polar bear plunge on January 1st to start.
Whoa. Yeah.
Now that was a big thing, okay, on day one. And I write about this in the book. And that was so far outside my comfort zone, I cannot even tell you. And I really didn't want to do it. My daughter was like, come on, let's go to the Jersey Shore. I'll take video of you. And I like these lovely guys in Speedos helped pull me into the water that day. And one of them still writes me Christmas cards every year,
Oh, that's
to
amazing.
remind me that we did this thing together. So and you don't have to do the polar bear plunge. You create your own journey, create your own thing. you know, I know, like you said, Julie, it might sound frivolous, something like this. Try it. Make the list. Try it for a week and see if it feels frivolous at the end of the week. Tell your friends, tell your family, I'm going to try new things. See what happens. And it impacted my career. It impacted my work. All of this, all those things I didn't want at the time. It was Twitter, it wasn't X. I didn't want to tweet, I didn't want to Facebook, I didn't even want to text. All those things I started adopting as I went on this journey. All those things, I'm like, nah, that's not for me.
Well, I was just going to say, I just want to highlight one of the things you mentioned of, I think the people who might be the most resistant to it are probably the ones that need it the most. And so those who are sitting there saying like, well, I don't have time for this, or like those things that we say, you might be the one who needs it the most at this time, because like you say, we kind of can make excuses of like, I don't have time to do that, or I have other these important things to do. But if it's a matter of 5 minutes, and we know that it can just re-energize you, it can reinvigorate. And I love to talk about, I mean, I'm trained in things around neuroscience and like our brain, things on that. So it's like I love the idea of you can change your brain and make all of those other things not only seem easier, but make you more open to those things. And so that's just my little kind of add in there around, if you're finding yourself going, I don't have time for this. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, because let me tell you, Lu Ann, why this is so motivating to me is because I have been writing since the beginning of the year that I want to take a hip hop class, because I used to do it as a kid. And I always thought it was fun. And I am like, I also have felt this need, like, I need something new. I need to try something new. And I've been pushing it off all year. And so I literally wrote down, like, Julie, it's time. So I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm pointing them at myself, too, to say, you might be the one that needs it the most. Like, I might be the one that needs it the most, because you need this new, fresh thing to make everything else feel more energized.
That's so great. If you haven't done it since you were a kid, like hip
Yeah.
hop, or you
Yeah.
played a musical instrument, or you played a sport and you haven't done it forever, go. I mean, that's great. That's wonderful to kind of, circle back to that thing and remember that joy that you had in that thing. We as adults forget to play. We really do. And the most creative and productive people in the world have great play lives. And I definitely I didn't have time for play. I don't have time for play. I'm very busy. I have lots of things I have to do right now. I don't have time for this. I rejected play. But now I mean, that's something that I try to instill in my life on a regular basis. And I attach myself to people who like to go play. And I found in this journey, I have a couple friends who I know I can always call. Like this last weekend, I wanted to, I just needed I needed a new experience, something. And I saw there was a lavender farm near me. And I'd never been to a lavender farm. And I called a friend who I knew could be up for something like that. I'm like, you want to go do something new? Let's go to a lavender farm. And she's like, let's go. Right? It helps to have a team, friends or people. But I will say this, you're going to have people who go, I don't like that idea. It's a silly, like doing new things. You're going to have doubters and people who are like, feel threatened by the idea that you're going to do new things. Don't be dissuaded, from it. That's a little fear too from others. Like, wait, why are you trying to do new things?
Yep. So how have you seen, you kind of mentioned it a little bit around like how your life has changed, but how have you seen yourself? Because the word transformed is what came up to me. It sounds like such a transformative experience. So how have you not only transformed by this, but as you've shared this message, as you have your book out there, as you speak about that, what kind of transformations have you seen in either your friend group or in those who you speak to around when they start doing things like this?
Oh my gosh, so many stories. I don't even know where to start. I will tell you for myself, I'll start with myself. After a year of doing first time experiences and blogging, my whole attitude toward work and doing new things changed. And in addition, a major publisher offered me a book deal to write a book. And I Dare Me is in
It's amazing.
in English, but it's
There it
also
is.
translated in Chinese, right?
Oh,
So
that's
we've got,
amazing.
yeah, it's in hardback, it's in paperback, it's an audiobook. It's an amazing thing. I stayed with NBC 10 here in Philadelphia another 5 years, but during my year of first time experiences, I went back to school. I started doing bigger things. I felt more courageous. While I was working full time, I went back to school, started working on my master's. I accepted a position to work as an adjunct instructor after my regular hours. Just like you said, you think you don't have time to do one more thing. It might be because you're sad and you feel stuck, and you'd be surprised that when you do new things, it gives you new energy.
Hmm.
You might really have more room than you know. And I did. I didn't know it. Those two things then started changing. 5 years later, I decided I was ready to leave TV news because I love teaching. And I wanted to help launch the next generation of communicators. And the book had come out. And I love speaking. So it totally transformed my life. And I got a second career that I love, that I never imagined I could have another career that I love as much as my first career. With other people, there's so many stories in the book and so many stories I talk about. I will tell you a story of a gentleman named Keith Baldwin in Philadelphia who owns a trophy, one of the largest trophy stores in the country, definitely in the Northeast here. And he was feeling stuck, and he came to a speaking engagement of mine, and he told me he was going to do new things. And I was like, okay. And he started sending me pictures of all the new things he was doing. He slept on the streets of Philadelphia with homeless. He did some big
Wow.
things. He started going to different temples and churches to learn about other religions. He learned to tie a bow tie. He got in his wife's high heels one day to see what that felt like. I mean, all kinds of crazy things, right? In the middle of his own year of first, the pandemic hit. And he thought, you know, trophies is not an essential business. So he had to tell all the people who were like family to him, who work for him, that they were losing their jobs, and he didn't know when he would be able to hire them back. And it just destroyed him. The same day he let all his people go, he got a call from a bank because he had to tell the bank, I don't even know if I can meet payroll or mortgage, all these
Yeah.
things. They said, hey, there's an opportunity to do for a COVID call center. Could your employees work a COVID call center? We could employ all of them. And he says, because he had been on this journey of first time experiences and doing the new and feeling more energized and understanding that he felt happier and more resilient and you could pivot, he could see the opportunity in this,
Mm.
doing this new thing. And he hired all his people back to run a COVID call center. They did it
Wow.
together. And they got through the pandemic together. And now, of
Mm.
course, they're making trophies again. But he credits because he feels like if he had not been on this journey of first time experiences, he's not sure that he would have been in the right mindset to see this opportunity, understand
Mhm.
how they could all change and do something new and learn something new. I mean, that's just one
That's
of
just
many
amazing.
stories. But I love that story
Hmm.
because I think, it definitely, as a leader in your organization, You got to think like, oh, how am I going to motivate and lead other people if I'm not daring myself? I want other people to do new things and try new things and their new policies. How am I going to get them to do this if I'm not walking that talk? If I'm not ready and able to do new things. And I think a diet of new things is kind of retrains the brain a bit. It's like a muscle.
Yep.
You're working.
So amazing. Yeah, I love that story too because it's when we start doing those things, I think still I always say like as leaders, we're humans. That's like let's humanize leadership, right? What we're doing personally affects us professionally, professionally affects us, and we still have this like we got to keep them so separate. But when you start to grow your mindset, your resilience, you're trying new things, it's going to transcend to both worlds. And right, so if you start doing those things, it's going to make you more open and receptive and resilient and confident because it's like, wow, if I could do that thing, I bet I can do this thing. And just as somebody who works with organizations a lot, we need our workforce to be resilient and agile, and there's change and innovation. And man, what would be possible if people were to start flexing that muscle a little bit more of trying those new things? So I love that story. I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing. I feel like we could talk forever of all of the stories. I just want to say thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for sharing with the
Oh, Julie,
listeners. Please make sure you let us know, where can we find your book? Let the
yes.
listeners know, where can we find your book? Where can we find you?
And Julie, thank you for this opportunity. I love talking to you, and I love your mission and your purpose and what you're doing for so many people. The I Dare Me is easy to find. You can find it on Amazon. There is an audiobook, if that's the way. There's Kindle. You can find it. It's still in bookstores, I think, at Barnes and
Woo,
Noble.
we
You
love
go to,
bookstores.
you can still, I'm waiting for it to be on the sale rack, but it's still there. Um, you can certainly order it. You can look me up on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Lu Ann Cahn, LuAnnCahn. I'd love to hear from you too. If you're doing first, if you've got a story you want to tell me, I'd absolutely love to hear from you about your own experiences.
Oh, so amazing. We will make sure that we put all of that in the show notes as well. We'll link to the book. We'll link to all of Lu Ann's LinkedIn, things like that, so you can go check it out. And please, as you know, and as I always share when we have our guests, the best way to thank our guests for coming on is to message them to say, hey, thank you so much for that. This is what I took away. And even better, go ahead and share that on LinkedIn that you listened to this episode. Let us know what you took away from it. Then we can get this message out to even more people, get Lu Ann's amazing message of I Dare Me and doing new things out to more people. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for listening, and go try something new today.
Absolutely. Do the new. Thanks, Julie, so much.
Thank you.